Hey, 42 here. You don't need to leave our planet to find people who you can't understand. For some people, you don't even need to leave your own house. You're still trying to understand why your mum has suddenly outlawed gluten, and why your dad thinks video games are the devil's work but spent his whole life playing with a model train set. But with some pointing and shouting at them, you can at least manage to communicate on a basic level. But what about if we really came into contact with an alien species? Is it realistic to think that we could communicate? And what form would that communication take? Speaking? Writing? Emojis? We can look to the early explorers of our planet, seeing how cultures collided for the first time. But at least they were all of the same species. Things might not be so easy when you're trying to communicate with a creature that has nipples for eyes and eyes where its nipples should be. Now, obviously our first problem is actually finding some aliens to talk to. Because it's a big old universe out there, and I'm not sure that Earth has yet made it into the Galactic Guidebook, despite Ford Prefect's best efforts. It's often said that the opening ceremony to the 1936 Olympics was the first message broadcast into space, and there is some truth to it. It was a high enough frequency that it may have escaped the ionosphere and headed out into the solar system. But the likelihood that anyone will be able to pick it up would be incredibly small because it doesn't have the power and concentrated direction to get noticed out there in the big universe. It will be lost in all the background noise. So thankfully, Hitler will not be the first face of mankind that aliens will see. You could say, they will not see him coming. We have made many international attempts both to send messages and to listen out for them. In August 1924, Mars was going to be closer to Earth than at any point in the past century. So the US decided to have a good old listen and declared National Radio Silence Day, where all radios were silent for 5 minutes on the hour every hour. They used an airship to lift a radio receiver 3 kilometers off the ground. So let's say we do get a message back. It's likely to be in the form of radio waves. What do we do then? The first thing is to try to work out what each part relates to. If it's mathematics, then hopefully we will know what to look out for. Things like the universal constants such as pi and e, numbers that occur throughout the universe no matter where you are. If it's language, then it becomes much more problematic since we don't have some kind of Rosetta Stone for aliens. The Rosetta Stone was a carved rock found in the town of Rosetta, Egypt in 1799. It was of incredible importance to our understanding of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, since it had a trilingual inscription: hieroglyphs, Egyptian script, and Greek. And this highlights our problem. Without the comparison to base our work off, it can be impossible to ever make a translation of a new language. We don't even need aliens to prove this theory. There are plenty of untranslated texts here on Earth. The Liber Linteus is a manuscript from around 250 BC that was found wrapped around a mummy. It's one of the few examples of the Etruscan language from ancient Italy, and we've barely managed to use any of it. There's also a language called Linear A from ancient Greek that we're struggling with, despite it sounding like a Microsoft typeface from the 90s. And there's also Proto-Elamites, used for a brief 200-year window in ancient Iran. We've still no idea what they were up to and what secrets these scripts hold. Some linguists have thought that perhaps letting language evolve naturally, with all of its weird quirks and local idiosyncrasies, is not the best way to go about things. English is taking over as the international language, thanks largely to its dominance over the internet. But attempts have been made to create a universal language, which could hopefully make life easier when the aliens do come to join us. Kenneth Searight created Sona in 1935 in response to some of the new constructed languages, or conlangs as they are known, such as Esperanto. His issue was that these new conlangs were all very European focused, which was not truly global. Sona was also agglutinative. This basically means that when you connect parts together, you don't change the form or sound or spelling, which is what most languages do, and all this fusing things together makes them much more complicated. Charles K. Bliss, a Jewish concentration camp survivor, tried to create a written pictogram language, one that would be universal and one that evil politicians could not manipulate, leading to the horrors that he had witnessed. Although bliss symbols never spread around the world, their logical structure was found to be very useful in teaching disabled children to communicate. But we don't know whether we will be speaking or listening first when it comes to alien communication. So in order to have our ears prepared for alien arrival, Dr. John Elliott of Leeds Metropolitan University in England has designed a piece of software that he hopes will be able to tell what is and isn't a language, and if it is, what patterns it contains. Finding out what form the message is actually in will be essential. If you get a JPEG from the stars, but you think it's music, it's going to be difficult to decipher the message. Although you will probably make a fortune as a pioneering new techno artist, you can just see the hipsters lapping that up. The Voyager probes that we sent out into the depths of our solar system both carry a gold disc, which plays like a record. Since there is music, sounds and images, we used pictures of hydrogen atoms to define the timescales since they are the most common element, and their state change is a universal constant. There is also a diagram of how to play the record, but given that half a page of IKEA instructions drives most of us to madness, I'm not holding out too much hope for the aliens. Thanks for watching. If we go back to the Middle Ages or even all the way back to the Roman Empire, was life ever any better than it is right now? Andrew Wakefield published a research paper claiming that there is a strong link between vaccinations and the onset of autism.